Hello and welcome to the Cheap Mama Life podcast. I am your host, Brenda Kilhoffer, your Cheap Mama, and today I have our favorite guest, Ingrid Essawova. She is a spiritual coach, life coach, and recovery and life coach, and intuitive. I get that all mixed up every time, but anyway, her intuition is dead on, and today we are going to discuss change and why we resist it. So I'm going to turn it on over to Ingrid. Ingrid, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience? They know you well. And for the new listeners out there, tell them who you are.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Once again, of course, I'm so honored and blessed to be here with Brenda. And again, I'm Ingrid Essawova. I'm a spiritual life recovery coach and intuitive in downtown Phoenix at the Urban Wellness Center. And now I'm global, by the way. Do we love Zoom or what? So, my job is to get people to connect to themselves, to their soulful self, and just live the best life full of joy and unconditional love.
Awesome. So we had talked for a few minutes. You came up with our topic today, why we resist change.
Woo-hoo.
And about change. So tell me what was on your heart when it comes to change and why our relationship with change and why we resist it.
Well, when we were thinking of a topic, I was thinking about my clients last week, and a couple of them have already come up with the fact that they just cannot stand change. It's like we're used to our routines, and we have this agenda that we have in our heads. And we don't have two heads. Sometimes we feel like we have two heads, but we really have one head. So when suddenly something shifts, we, all hell breaks loose, and we have a meltdown because we think that things have to work a certain way, and everybody has their part, and everything has their part, and God forbid you put people off their tracks. What are they going to do?
Right. And I think we're in a time right now where there's a lot of change for everybody in a very short amount of time. Things are constantly changing from day to day with what you can expect from, your jobs, the economy, is it masks on, masks off? Can I travel? Can I not travel?
Right. And I think that we have to go back to basics again. And that's kind of the work that we do at Simply True. We go back to the basics and, well, at least on the spiritual pathway, and say, okay, why is it that we are here on this plane? It's about experiencing experiences and the changes. Right. We think that when there is a change, it's a catastrophe at times. But we don't realize that 100% of the changes that take place in our life is for our higher good.
Right.
100%. So whenever there's a change, and even though it was not on my schedule, I did not get the memo. Actually, I did get the memo before I came here, but that's beside the point. I lost it. It was in my stuff somewhere, it's for our benefit, because
right.
We manifest and we want certain things to go a certain way in our future, and we're being given that. So if it's the end of something, right? If it's a loss, I don't believe in loss, by the way, because at the end of the day, when we pass, we don't even take our bodies. So right. Our body, and again, we don't have two bodies. Well, actually, we kind of do. Never mind. So one body. We don't even own our
physical body versus the spiritual body,
exactly.
Right?
So then what is it that we own? So therefore, if we don't own anything, really, then there's no loss. All there is really change.
Mhm.
Change in the tiny, tiny, tiny bit, and change in gigantic change. If everyone just think of their lives for a moment, and every time you had a small change or a gigantic change, now that you can look back, wasn't it to lead a healthier, more productive path? Even though we didn't like it at the time.
And maybe not in that immediate, and yet maybe years
Correct.
later we draw upon it and the lessons we learned at that time.
Correct. Now one can say, okay, well, I lost my child passed away. How on earth can that benefit me? Not every change has to do with the impact to do with you. That was a contract that I have a belief system that we all have contracts, and the contract was simply up. That person did what they needed to do on earth, and it's their time. It's about them. And the fact that we are a part of it, we gave permission to it on one level or another to be a part of the system, and it can be about us to maybe let go, or to maybe be an advocate, to make a change, depending on what type of death it was. You know what I mean? Every change it's for our higher self, every single one. So who do you think, Brenda, would argue with this? And what would they say? Really putting you on the spot now.
Wait a minute, we kind of flipped roles here a little bit. Well, I mean,
who would argue with that, and what would they say?
Well, I think perhaps someone that, well, I think a lot of people would have, but because I think in many ways we're conditioned to go out and live a very routine life. I mean, I think, many people have the same breakfast day in and day out, they go
every day,
and we're actually taught, I mean, as a parent, many times you're taught, hey, you've got to stick to the routines, right? So I think a lot of people might argue that change is a bad thing, or is not, doesn't help them, or makes
it
things
creates
difficult.
chaos.
It creates chaos.
Dynamic of day-to-day activity, right?
Right.
So therefore, it's really about our teaching, our teaching, what we grow up with how parents teach, how teachers, how, when we put on the television, we are wired, we are programmed a certain way and we think that's truth. This doesn't get through my head. There's going to be change in life. It is inevitable. For Pete's sake, it's happened to every single person on this earth, regardless of gender, sex, creed, religion. So why are we not getting it? Why is this not taught in schools?
Well, first off, I think there's just a level of comfort, because change isn't always easy. Change has a lot of moving parts. I mean, you can be a catalyst for change, or you can kind of accept, I could be a catalyst for change, or I could accept status quo and just be comfortable. Now, that comfort doesn't necessarily, I think, move me forward. Well, and comfort as a nation, like you said, why isn't it taught in school? I mean, well, come on, our school system was created in the industrial age and has changed very little. I mean, outside of, even the arguments now per se. I mean, even the arguments now are the same arguments, the same circumstances, the same issues, the same, let's go on and on. Maybe it's different words. Maybe it's a different group of people, but it's still the same repeating patterns. And so,
Exactly.
no, I have a mentor that says, the lesson continues until the lesson is learned. So perhaps, as the system per se resists that change, the lesson just keeps coming back
Over
until
and
you
over
figure
until
it out.
something figure it out. And isn't that funny? You just said earlier, change can be hard. We were taught that,
Right.
but it really doesn't have to be hard.
Correct. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be hard. It's because we perceive things as being true, certain things that are truth, and this is the pathway you see life, you deliver. This is how you perceive it. This is how you deliver. This is how you execute. And therefore, if something is thrown into the mix called change, then, we go all batty. But if we were actually taught, it really probably gets right down to religion. That's why we're not taught that in school, because if we were really going to teach change, that means we were going to teach empowering self, to take accountability for everything we think, everything we say, everything we do, to manage and navigate ourselves so we are healthy and productive. And that would just ruffle feathers. Because when
that would
part of
be
the equation has to do with self and empowering self, there is an issue, because therefore others cannot have control over the masses.
Right. If I'm empowered, then I am
Will not
not conforming to what works for those that have put the system as it currently is in place.
Correct.
So,
and that whole
as you mentioned, change doesn't have to be hard. So the thought came to mind, and so let's just go where it is. How can you say that to, for instance, a mom who's been a stay-at-home mom, married, never been in the workforce, or hasn't been in the workforce for many years because she's having children. And now her whole world has changed because husband decides he wants to make a change. And now they're separating, getting divorced. And now you've got this mom who's got children that she's raising, and she gets to do it all alone. And how does that not feel hard or be a hard change?
That scenario within itself does not have to be a hard scenario. When you start at that point, when that husband's going to leave you, well, that's going to be a little tricky. That's like if you don't give discipline to your child and you decide to discipline them at 16 years old. Oh, good luck with that. Whereas if you started when they were 1 and every single year, so then by the time they get to be 16, they're kind of a part of the flow. And if you did it at 16, oh my gosh, that would be like a bomb just went off. So the answer to your question is about, once again, taking accountability from the beginning. If I wish to have kids, I have to understand and take the accountability that I might have to raise them by myself one day. So do I have one? Do I not? Oh, now I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And also realize when you get married, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. Just the fact of thinking that these things cannot happen, the fact that you decide not to go out and be independent, financially independent, that has a consequence.
Right.
It really gets down to taking accountability for every part of your life and not having expectations for others to, take care of it. And so it starts from the beginning. And I can understand, just like that 16-year-old, you suddenly decide that, you're going to start disciplining them, and it's like a bomb, and that will be like that as well. And again, it depends on generations, in the Leave It to Beaver, June Cleaver days, whoever heard of divorce? I mean, that was kind of heard of. And for women to go out in the workforce, everyone was working, that was not quite the thing. You raise children, but you have to understand, you have to get with the times, you have to be mindful and be aware, and not to be naive that certain things would not happen.
Right.
I think, there I go again, that certain things can happen, and what makes you think they cannot? And plus, before the husband left, there were so many clues, it wasn't even funny.
Right.
Things like that just don't happen overnight. Or you can say, so everything is great, and then suddenly the husband passes away.
Right.
That can happen overnight,
Of course,
without any clues. But the clue is that you have to understand that might happen.
right. Right. And that should be a part of your family planning, as far
Your
as
family planning.
Right. What happens if, what do we have set up and in place should this happen?
And why is it that we don't do that? Because we don't even want to go there. We're too scared. We couldn't even imagine the change. These are the conversations that we need to be having. Absolutely.
Right.
If this happens, what are we going to do?
And so are those conversations part of the resisting change? By not having those conversations, is that a clue that, you're resisting inevitable change or any possibility of change?
I think so. I absolutely think that. Absolutely. And the fact is, why is it that people don't talk about certain topics?
Mm-hmm.
It's because they can't even imagine being in that scenario for a moment.
Right.
So they just sweep it under the rug. And the thing that you're most afraid of, it will be. Because that's what you attract.
What you resist persists.
Yes, what you resist persists. I like that. Did you make that up?
No, I didn't. I can't take credit for it. I learned that at a seminar. And
there you go.
And it's so true. I mean, like
if
you said,
and let's look.
It's where you're focusing your energy. If you're focusing your energy on resisting something, well, like you said, you attract it. I mean, that's just the energy that you bring to the table.
Exactly. And let's really talk about when people accept change, when they surrender. They realize, wow, that really wasn't such a big deal.
Right.
Well, they kind of think that was a big thing, that we're going to talk about that painful subject.
Right.
And then when you dissect it and you actually have a game plan, and then you're like, oh, actually, that's fine. So resisting that change is actually more painful than actually facing it and dealing with it. Every time there's a change, I celebrate. I go like this. I go, yippee! Well, maybe not a whole yippee, but just as a yip.
Yeah. Well, I had a mentor, a friend who would, set goals, and then every time some catastrophe hit, whether it was the car breaking down, and I remember one time I think somebody had broke into it and actually pulled the steering wheel off of it, and all of these different things that would happen. And every time something like that happened, he would simply reframe it as like, I know I'm hitting the goal now because I just have this opportunity to overcome this challenge. It's
a celebration.
There's another obstacle that I get to overcome and find my way
and see
around.
How I roar.
Yeah. So it was always a joy watching that and learning from that, to be able to stop the immediate, like, fear, freak out, emotion that comes with it and say, okay, how can I reframe this so that it becomes
a productive, healthy, flowing pattern. And you know
right.
how you do it? I don't look at anything as a catastrophe. I look at something going, oh, okay, plan B, plan C, plan D. Oh my God, plan E is not working. Plan F and G, I still got letters in the alphabet. It's okay. None of them will work.
Right.
And you go through a lot of plan Bs throughout the day. Plan
For
B,
sure.
literally, it's about, oh, are we going to go hiking down this path or are we going to go down this path?
Even the simplest things, right? I mean, you could
Yeah.
take it. I know there was working with a group of people, and we had a task to complete with a timeline. And I remember, putting it out there, hey, let's get together on a Zoom. Well, there's, I don't know, 14 of us. So, it was a little bit like herding cats, and it was like, okay, this isn't working. Let's do a poll, so I created a poll, and okay, that worked well, and just shift and move. And okay, that didn't work. Let's shift and move. Let's shift and move. Let's
shift and move. Exactly.
And do it like
and
that,
evolve.
Versus versus the frustration that I can remember in other circumstances where I couldn't, where I couldn't come up with a solution. Where in this, it was almost humorous. It was like, okay, that didn't work. Move on. So I want to talk, you brought up surrender, and we are right at our break time. So okay. I am going to go and put us on break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll come back. And I want to hear a little bit more about what it means to surrender, how you do that in all practicality, because it sounds a lot easier than, I don't know. I suppose it could be super easy.
It is. Absolutely.
Great. So let's learn from you how to surrender. And we're going to go hear from our sponsor real quick. We'll be right back.
Perfect.
Hello, good people out there in podcast world, cyber world. Interrupt your programming real quickly to tell you about our sponsor, Medium Lauren Robbins. Medium Lauren Robbins, if you look at someone who's warm, loving, genuine, and has a welcoming energy, like talking to a friend, Lauren is the one to talk to. She's direct. She will tell you what you need to know, not what you want to hear, and will comfort you when you cry or when you are upset, like a good friend would. If you are a new client, she will make you understand what you requested before you even start the session or service. Visit MediumLaurenRobbins.com for sessions and services. Get hooked up with an endorsed medium today.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is Brenda Kilhoffer, your Cheat Mama, and I am here with Ingrid Essawova, a life recovery and spiritual intuitive coach. And I messed it all up again, but that's what we're going to go with. We are going to talk, I've got all the words in just in the wrong order, so it counts. And if you so we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about surrender, because right now I am forcing Ingrid to surrender to me butchering her title. I don't know if she can talk because she's laughing so hard.
She got all the words in. That's a good thing. Forgive me. It doesn't matter.
And look how easy surrender is. You're rolling on the floor laughing.
Give up. And that's how you do it.
But really, I mean, that actually is, we didn't plan that, but that is a good example. I mean, you're always talking about ego, right? And if you were truly connected to your ego right now, you'd be over there stewing like, holy cow, why can't she get my title right?
Right, exactly. I just love the fact she put all the words in different places. It's perfect if somebody's dyslexic. So this is what that's all about. It's about surrendering, because it just doesn't matter. Everything in life, it just doesn't matter. You go out there, you do the best that you can, you use common sense, you use your creativity, you use your intuition, and you just go, this is what I can do. Like it, leave it, do whatever, next. It just doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, something, it can't, as they say, I don't use that word, but life can be worse. And if it can't be worse, but we'll talk then. You know what I mean? Surrendering is letting go. And I think I had said this on another podcast, which was if you hold on really tight. So if you use your hands as an example, if you hold on really, really, really tight and you don't let go, you don't see things, you don't see inside, there's no movement and there's no light. But when you let go of your hands and you have your palms spread out, you see inside, there's movement and there's light. And frankly, in life, I always want to see.
Right.
I always want to have flexibility to do my moves. And I only live in light, so I don't want dark.
Well, I think there's an interesting, I had heard that, when, obviously people capture wild animals for the point of domesticating them. And I remember somebody teaching about monkeys, right? Where that they capture monkeys, they put the banana or the food inside a container with just a little round hole that the hand can go in, and then the monkey grabs that food, that banana, and can't get back out. And they are unwilling to release the banana. So they would literally, they are trapped and literally stuck there. And, I don't ever let go when all it would take is letting go of that banana to free themselves. And I think there's a lot of things that, life it's a great picture of life. I mean, how many times do we hold on to something so tight that we miss out on what we could be experiencing or moving forward into, because we're holding on to something that really, to your point, belongs in the past. It doesn't belong in the right here and now for our own growth.
And really, it's about what we have to, we keep holding on tight because we don't want the change, because we are afraid of what we have to live with and what we have to live without if we did let go.
Okay.
So, if we take care of and we learn how to empower, which we do at Simply True, if you learn how to empower those changes of what you have to live with and what you have to live without, then you will always let go. So that's the whole thing. I don't have a list anymore. Oh boy, did I have lists. But just have that fear of what you have to live with and what you have to live without. There's no more lists. It's just, I'm going to navigate my life how I want it. I love my life. I want my life the way it is and the way it is going. I wouldn't want anything to change, and I'm going to manage and navigate it and set my goals and live day to day. It's recognizing what you're able to change. Yeah, recognize the things you cannot change and change the things you can. And it's about when you cannot change that, surrender.
Right.
Surrender, or go in different pathways. Plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to do up to G. And then after I've done everything I could, I am surrendering. I am letting go.
So you brought up, you said something that actually tied me back to an earlier comment. So when we were talking about, the empowerment and school and things like that, about it it be not being religion, or they would have to teach religion. That's, as you were just speaking, what I want to unpack it a little bit. And you had mentioned, I can't remember exactly what it was, but the thought came to me, a faith, right?
Right.
We're holding on so tight to what we have.
It's empowering ourselves.
And there's the fear. There's the fear of what's going to happen. And regardless of what kind of religious practice you may have, that having that faith that all of your needs are going to be met is what dispels the fear. I mean, that's
correct.
Kind of what that's what
correct.
empowers people to move forward, is having faith in something. And I think when we flip over, and the example was the school system, but many, many other things. But isn't our world really trying to teach that you follow science? Like right now, that's all we hear about is follow the science, follow the science, follow the science. Right.
And how's that working for us?
Right. Versus that faith, that spirituality piece of it, where, okay, something's shifting, something's different. It's all going to be okay. I have faith. I believe I'm empowered to have that faith and trust that if I let go of this, what's coming is going to move me forward in some way.
Right.
Or my needs will be met in some way, even as I let go of this.
So what's your question?
I don't know that it was a question. I was just, it was just kind of connecting the dots to, the statement you made earlier about, for the schools to teach us how to do that, they would have to.
And it would be in the way of religion. Mm-hmm. Right. Because then what people would do is empower themselves, and that can be a conflict. Yet even in religion, have faith, great. Then have faith in something outside of yourself, or something within yourself, or whatever it is, and have that faith and totally let go. Wonderful. Whatever makes you let go, whether it's you, whether it's this entity or this and that, I don't care. But as long as bottom line, you do it. Because then let go and have faith. But then there's contradictions. So
right. And wouldn't you say, I mean, I know there's a lot of people that believe that we are right now, that as a people, as a human race, that we are kind of right now in a period of spiritual awakening.
Absolutely.
And so isn't it interesting that as you turn on media right now with respect to anything, it's all about follow the science, follow the science, follow the science, follow the science. Right? I mean, you and I've had discussions on masks, right? Like you're like, well, if I feel it's appropriate in the moment, then I put it on. If I don't feel, versus the media would say, well, where, follow the science.
It's
the science
fear.
says, and so I just think that's really, kind of goes back to the original point. Why do we resist it so much? Why do we resist change so much?
Control.
Yeah. Part of it is recognizing, where is our source of programming coming from?
Correct. That's the sentence. Where is our source of our wiring and programming, and how is it working for us?
Right.
And like I always say, how's that working for you? And if it's working for you 100%, fantastic, you found it. We are not here to judge what it is and how it is. We want to see the result. If the result is that you fully release. You have no judgments. You have no expectations. You have no attachments. You have pure unconditional love and joy for everyone equally. Good for you. You found your source, whatever that source is.
Right.
Right, exactly. And anything other than that is a block, is obstacles. There creates anger, frustration, fear, disappointment, doubt. And that stops us in our tracks.
Absolutely.
And I want to hit on, when I had said that, I just realized something for change as well, a little bit more into the spiritual part for a moment and see how this resonates with our audience. We can have everything we want in life, everything that is not ego driven, if we simply surrender, release, and believe, and have faith in the system of the higher self. No, that does not mean you sit in the middle of the living room with your chair and tap your toe and say, I'm waiting. No,
Right.
it means you go, you initiate, you do what you need to do. Initiate, use your creativity, use your intuition, listen, observe, research, do. And there's only 24 hours in the day. You can only do so much. But when you release and you have no fear and no doubt, you can have everything that you want that's not ego driven. What is it that stops us from having what we want that's not ego driven? The minute we put out there fear and doubt, it's over.
Right.
The minute we put fear and doubt. It's like, and I'm making this part up a little bit, sort of, kind of, it's like there's like 10 gates in our energetic team. All right. And the minute you put fear and doubt, those gates are closed. We have to do the work first. We have to initiate first. And then let our energetic team, whoever that may be, let that energetic team do their stuff. What's their stuff? The things that we call coincidences. There's no coincidences. It's all synchronicity. So when you're thinking, should I first go to the bank and then go to the grocery store? Should I go to the grocery store first? And something's telling you, go to the grocery store, go to the grocery store. Well, guess who you ran into?
Right.
And guess what was offered to you? And oh my goodness, there you are. Now you have a new job. If you would did it the other way around, you wouldn't have run into that person, right? So again, it's about that faith. It's that belief. It's about surrendering.
There was a pastor that I listened to once. He called those divine appointments, right?
Yes.
That when you are, again, not coincidences, but when you are in that synchronicity, that the divine appointments happen. I mean, if you're in, you know, and it's really just following that intuition. And how many times do we not, like,
we not exactly
again
the
fear steps in, like, you know,
exactly.
I mean, perfect example, you're walking around the grocery store and the same person keeps passing you by and by, and you say, oh, I should say something,
right? And yeah, because what are
and
the
then
odds
you're like, oh, they're
going to
think I'm stupid, and you just go the other way, and that might have been
your long lost brother.
Or that job interview you mentioned, right? I mean, that could have, or it might just have been an incredible conversation where you shifted something for them and you have no idea what, right? You know, just that high, that smile, that something might have just opened up a whole, you know.
A whole flood of stuff. Absolutely. But fear and doubt stops us. And coming from a place where I used to have fear and doubt all day long, and I know what my life used to be like, and now to a point there's zero fear, zero doubt. I want to tell you that what we do here on Earth and our energetic team, how they play, it is 50-50. It is 50-50 constantly, every hour on the hour. There's so both are working, and it's synchronized, and it's just Beautiful. Even if you're late somewhere, okay, and you have this fear, the ego gets in and you're late, maybe you're late because if you went on time, you may have gotten in a car accident, for God's sakes.
Right.
All right. So you're exactly where you're supposed to be at any given time. Do your best. Take responsibility, take accountability,
Right.
do your best. And then when you do your best and then this still happens, release, and go to plan B, go to plan C next.
Right.
But we're so programmed into that ego thing all the time.
And ultimately, to your point, it's about taking responsibility. I mean, certainly, if there's a habitual habit of being late and it's costing you and you're paying prices for that all of the time, that might be that might be one of those things that you look at and say, okay, you know what?
Do I want it? Do I not want it?
Yeah.
Do I want to be with a friend that's constantly late? It's up to you. Let them be late. Let them be late. Let them be themselves. Stop judging.
Yes.
Stop judging. Let it go. And perhaps, their credibility then just went from, let's say, a 60% down to a 40%.
Right.
So then don't meet on times where it's crucial to meet at a certain time. Just say, hey, make sure you're there before 12 or something. I don't know.
Right.
Make decisions, manage and navigate through your environment.
Right.
And if you're able to shift something in the environment effortlessly, go for it. And if you can't, go to plan A, B, and C. Life can be so simple. We just complicate it so much because we resist change so much.
So embrace change, right? Surrender to it, embrace it.
God,
and
it's the best thing for you. and you know what's so funny? When I've surrendered to everything and I'm just living my life, I noticed there were less changes. Yeah, I noticed there were less changes. So more changes came up because I was not in the vibration that I was supposed to be in. And I kept going against the wave instead of riding the wave to shore.
Right. And it's so funny, we talked a few minutes ago, we were talking about the spiritual versus the science, and yet there is science to the vibrations, right? To the frequency. Like, I mean, there's a what is it that at 200, that's your baseline above the line frequency, right? That's where courage.
That's low vibration,
very
lots of dark.
But that's still that's still the first above, right? For above the zero line, right? Is where courage steps in. Down below, you're having the fear and the really low vibrations, the fear and things like that. But if you can just step into that lowest, that courage to step through the fear, that courage to accept the change, the courage to let go of whatever you're holding on to, the courage to, I don't know, embrace something.
And people probably don't do that because they really think something's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen to you.
And at the end of the day, do we really have control over what happens to us?
Yes, we do.
We do.
A lot. A whole lot.
Okay.
A whole lot. Absolutely. I can feel how I want to feel about anything and everything. And I can pretty much navigate. It's just like a company managing and navigating and drawing boundaries and standards and policies for their product and service. They can lead the company, and then one can say, well, how much control do they really have? Quite a bit.
Right.
They're running the company for years and decades, you bet. And then stuff happens like, coronavirus. Okay, well, all right. That's a big monkey's wrench in it. But then they readjust and then you continue again.
Right. So, I mean, look at how many companies are having their best ever.
Because,
Yeah. because
I
of
just started,
coronavirus.
my company was 7 months old when coronavirus hit. I'm all by myself. And I'm like, wow, but yeah, I am so blessed that that was almost my best.
Right.
And then keep on going because there was that need.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that was interesting, and the download is coming to me again, how if you embrace change,
Right.
and you do what you need to do, you're gonna have the most neutral flow and consistent flow for your life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it on up today.
Wrap it on up. We should have a theme song.
That was I think we could do a whole nother episode on some of these techniques and
Yes.
opportunities to grow. So I look forward to having you back. How do people reach you, Ingrid?
They just go on simplytrue.com. That is the simplest way, no pun intended. Simplytrue.com.
Awesome.
Simplytrue.com. And in case I didn't mention it, simplytrue.com.
All right. Well, check out Ingrid. Be sure to download, subscribe to the Cheap Mama Life podcast so that you don't miss a single time or a single episode that Ingrid is here with us. Thank you again so much for being with us today. I always appreciate having you and just gain so much wisdom from you.
Blessings. Thank you. Thank you to all. Have a beautiful, safe day and week.
Awesome.
Hope you enjoyed that episode of the Cheap Mama Life podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review right now if you haven't already, and hit that share button. Until next time.